For any organization, cultivating a modern approach for learning culture, changing the perception and value of the organization are the great characteristics and parameters that will indicate that the organization is progressing well into a modern lane. Many organizations have to try to change the perception and value of the industry in an organization. Main characteristics, among others, are the practices that will ensure the learning culture, that will ensure learning as a part of life, part of the job. We will make the organization more credible and valued partner to the business in which that industry is pursuing. Then it will get a specific role, specific name, and a great niche among the industries in the same field of the business. And if it is better to take a nice to have approach, we must give the approach of cultivating the learning culture in the minds of the people working in an organization rather than feeling worse and expendable. We must give an approach that they should feel nice to have this approach to develop the learning process or develop the learning culture. It would be better to remind everyone that who is working in the organization that the economic environment is described as the very important matter to be kept in the minds of the people, whether it is the level of the lowest level of the manager to the level of executive. And then only the work to do, the inevitability, the context in which one has to develop this learning culture will be realized. Trillions of dollars are being spent by several organizations for developing this learning culture. That means it has great economic importance and value for any organization in carving out the future of its organization. According to research by Emerald Works in 2020, 99% of learning leaders said that improving organizational performance was a priority, but only 21% reported achieving this. That means the laying foundation and bestowing thorough concentration are not there in the organization in this particular field of developing learning as a culture of the organization. Majority of the L&D professionals who took part in the recent study by Fosway Group reported changing their strategy because of the inevitable circumstances that are looming on the heads of the organization in order to survive, in order to gain, in order to prosper in the tough competitive economic environment. It should evolve a strategy because of the problems it is facing now because of various factors in the world economy. While the uncertain backdrop poses considerable challenge, it also provides learning and development with an opportunity to pause and reflect, a quite good method which can review how things have been done in the past and how to redefine, I emphasize the word redefine, what is to be done to develop culture, that is learning as a cultural process. It requires a modern approach for cultivating this. Let us see what are the modern features which have to be inculcated in developing this. A modern approach to this requires organizational focus, helping employees deliver for the organization, learning at its best, learner focus, bringing the most value to the employees. That is where very important emphasis has to be kept. In modern outline, learning culture, a team can ensure they are delivering real impact at an organizational and individual level, and an add on to focus on bringing insight and intelligence into your organization. Bringing insight and intelligence into your organization. The core of applying this model, most modern model method, outlined by several intellectuals, it requires evolution of the practice for further regardless to provide practical framework that can be used to develop learning as a culture. There are very pivotal points which have to be kept in the minds of the managers. Then the first and foremost point is bringing insight led learning and development. Identifying the barriers to performance, designing effective solutions, and tracking impact all rely on data and insight. This is a very important point for any organization. This is about asking right questions to test hypothetical basis for the managers, about better understanding performance gaps or learning needs, and the root causes. It is about being close to people and performance data. It is about responding to requests for learning and training with the analysts. A role of an analyst as a senior manager or a senior manager, a top executive position, shall have that analytical proposition what is required to the organization to develop this learning as a culture, which will contribute to the performance. Then, focused value, not the volume. See, there is no meaning in conducting hundreds of learning sessions or learning and development and learning as a culture sessions, but the value, the content, what we are inducting, what we are telling, or what we are keeping into the brains of the workman to the level of a top manager, that is very, very, very important. It must function about an offer to range of people, wide range of people, to attract and inculcate, to induct in the brains that focused value. It is not the volume more important. It is not about the learning method or type of tool that determines whether learning is to lean. It is about to apply and utilize available resources to deliver and derive the most learning value in the organization. Bring learning into the flow of work. If there is no relevance between what you are teaching, what you are cultivating, what you are developing, and the actual flow of work, then there is no use of learning and development process or developing any culture, cultivating any culture. Traditionally, learning focused on creating or offering solutions that take people out of their workflows to learn. It is not the criteria. You must inculcate a learning culture which can train the brains of the managers to respond, to react, and work on any problem which is pervading the organization. Because after all, any problem, every problem had a solution if the managers systematically apply what they have learned in a scientific method to understand and to face the challenge. Adopting this approach, learning professionals must combine their understanding of employees, challenges, and knowledge gaps with an understanding of where the work takes place. So, the learning culture must flow of work, it must reach to the flow of work, then only it will have a better impact. We must bring learning closer to the movement of the need. There is no meaning in building and piling up so much of knowledge in the brains of the workman, but it should be closer to the moment of the need. Every organization will have several needs in the process of expansion, in the process of organizational development. So the learning must become closer to the moment of need. The same can be said traditional corporate learning, but every corporation has to mold according to the changing conditions and coordinate administration. Learning often delivered in a traditional way, but now is the right time to develop in a new method, an approach, a modern approach of cultivating learning as a culture in the organization. An organizational culture, it should be a trait, it should become a trait of the organizational culture. So the main slogans here: learn new, learn more, apply, solve, and change. These three words, apply, solve, and change, they must be the slogans of the organization in inculcating this learning culture as a trait of the organizational culture. Learning how to do something for the first time, the brains must be trained such an atmosphere to the managers. Learning more about it and deepening the knowledge, applying what they have learned, solving problems when things do not go to plan, learning new ways to do something in response to a need to adjust or change. Responsive and adaptable learning culture and development, they flow together and give lifeline to the organization. After doing all these things, there must be a machinery and a mechanism to measure the impact of the input. That is, what are the inputs we have inducted and how they are reacting, how they are having their own impact on the organizational movement. When we are clear about organizational priorities and align our learning culture development solutions accordingly, we will be using the same metrics and measures to evaluate success. So, in discussion, we must have a mechanism to measure the impact of what we are preaching, what we are developing, and what we are telling. There is another important thing people ignore: design that ignores people. People ignore design that ignores people. That should not be done. We must always be people in our mind in the process of designing any method or any approach. Instead of relying upon the tried and tested methodology, we should be more focused on understanding our users' real needs and challenges of the organization. So, any learning culture, learning process, or understanding, it must be self disrupting. It is fair to say that learning culture, which we are developing, and HR often do not practice what they preach, especially when it comes to self development and learning. However, it is critical to constantly self disrupt by challenging our own thinking and approaches. I repeat this word: self disrupt by challenging our own thinking and our own approaches to see what else could be done better, what else could be contributed to the organization in a better way. Self disruption involves critically evaluating everything we do and how we do it in order to review its effectiveness and impact on the organization. The focused culture, the learning as a culture, it will be matched with the content also. There is an abundance of research to demonstrate importance of cultivating a learning culture. So our focus in learning and development should go beyond merely creating learning solutions. As Nigel Payne puts it, simply getting the learning right has far less impact than getting the culture right. I repeat this, a beautiful quotation. Simply getting the learning right has far less impact than getting the culture right. So we have to work for getting the culture right. Some fundamental components of learning culture that are generally agreed on: trust, collaboration, innovation, sense of purpose, or knowledge exchange. However, The journey to cultivating the culture of learning can be slow, complicated, and arguably is never ending. Often it involves harnessing and leveraging a culture of learning that already exists across the business. Sometimes it is about the facilitation of social learning through connecting people across the organization and breaking down the silos. This is very important. A methodology must be evolved to break the silos and across various branches, a common aspiration, a common culture of learning shall be developed. Fundamentally, this journey starts by accepting that no matter how great your content, without a culture of learning, no matter however great your content is, without a culture of learning, your learning and development efforts will go so far, will not go far in contributing to the organization. Few final thoughts I'll give on this subject. These characters for some won't seem new or modern, but for many in the industry will mean venture to the unknown and uncomfortable. If the roles in learning and development has taught us anything, it is that we need to do everything in our power to change perception of our industry and its value in our organization. This is the essential criteria, essential slogan, essential objective of the organization. That is changing the perception of our industry and its value in the committee of the organizations, that the other organizations must feel that this something must be learned from this particular organization which has developed learning as a culture, not an order taker or worse still an expendable, a nice to have, a learner, that is the manager or worker in the organization should feel that it must be, his heart must be throbbed with joy in becoming a part and parcel of the learning culture, developing the learning culture in an organization. This will help the organization to build a charisma, to build an organization flavor among the committee of the organization in this modern world. Thank you very much.